creator of Dry It, Can It. I'm not a professional, I'm a homemaker, but I like to share tips on preserving food, especially canning, dehydrating, and freeze drying, as well as original recipes. Now recently I did a video on how to freeze dry peanut butter, and I ended up with a peanut butter powder. And I said that I'd come up with a recipe for that, which I did. But as I was thinking about it, I thought, you know, you really could use any recipe that requires peanut butter. Now I might be a little bit careful about recommending peanut butter powder for baking right away because I haven't tried that. And for those of you that watched the video, you know that I started with 3/4 cup of peanut butter and ended up with about 3 cups of powder. But let's move forward with what I'm going to do today, which is a peanut butter chicken stir fry. Twice a year, I like to go through my freezers. I like to kind of empty them out, use up things that are in there that I haven't used, just to kind of keep food from going to waste, as well as just check my refrigerator and see what's there. When I realized that you could really do anything with this peanut butter that you would normally do peanut butter with, I decided to do a stir fry and then also kind of check my pantry and see what I might have. So what I did is I took about a pound of chicken. I actually used 4 boneless chicken thighs. I cut those up and I browned them in a little bit of vegetable oil, and you know, just made those bite size. Then I decided I wanted to have some peppers for color. I have really 2 things going on here. I'm using my dehydrated red and yellow peppers, which really, when you dehydrate them, they get fairly thin. They're never going to get looking like they were. And I didn't have a lot of those, so I also used some of my chopped dehydrated peppers. When I dehydrate my food, especially peppers and apples and carrots, I think about how I might use them. So I usually will do them diced, sliced, and chopped so that I have them for whatever I want to do. So to rehydrate the peppers, just put them in cold water, let them sit for about a half an hour, and they're good to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put everything together, but I'm going to start with the peanut butter. So as I said, when I did the video for the peanut butter powder, I started with 3/4 cup of peanut butter, and I ended up with 3 cups of powder. Now I know that ideally I would like to have about a 1/4 cup of peanut butter in this recipe. And if you watched the video, you saw that it rehydrated a lot easier than I thought it was going to. So I have a cup of peanut butter powder here, and I'm going to get some water. So hang on a sec. All right, I have some warm water here because that worked really well for rehydrating the peanut butter when I did the other video. What I really want to find out though is with 1 cup of peanut butter powder, how much water do I need to rehydrate 1 cup so that I can use that for other recipes and get a sense of that. So I'm going to really add my warm water, kind of a teaspoon at a time, and see what I end up with. I'm going to start with 3 teaspoons, which is actually a tablespoon, and then just see where we're at with this. When I did the video for the peanut butter powder, I started with a 1-to-1 ratio, and that was way too much. Now, even with that little bit, you know, it's definitely, I'm going to need more water, but look how much it's already coming together. So I'm going to add another teaspoon. That's going to make 4 teaspoons for this cup so far. I should probably get a knife out to get this off of the spoon here. And we're going to stir this until we get to peanut butter consistency, which we are actually really close on, but we're not there yet. So I'm going to add another teaspoon of water. And at some point, I might find even 1 teaspoon might be too much, but I think this will give us a pretty good ratio. Now this works with the recipe that I did for making the peanut butter powder. If you use a different recipe, your ratios might be a little bit different in terms of how to rehydrate the peanut butter. This looks like it's going to be pretty close. It's still just a little bit dry, but you can see it's coming together pretty well. And I'm going to add, I think, maybe about a 1/2 teaspoon of water additional. When you're rehydrating your freeze-dried food, unless you have more ingredient, like if this got too thin, I could add more powder, but sometimes you don't have more food, less is more. Don't add too much water, because if you get too much and you don't have something to thicken it back up or get to the texture you want, you know, then you're kind of out of luck, shall we say. So this is just a tiny bit This is really acceptable the way it is, but it's just a little bit thicker than I want to have it. So I'm going to add another teaspoon. I think that's going to be 6 total. I'll probably have to go back and watch the video to know for sure. And I think that's pretty good. It's going to add another half a teaspoon. So that's going to be 6.5. Yep, I think that's where we're at, 6.5. It was a little bit like a heavy cookie dough before I added this last part of it. So we have peanut butter. And how much do we have? I'm not going to measure it exactly, but I think we're going to be pretty close to that 1/4 cup. So I have a kind of one big blob here with a little bit left in the container. And I just want to taste it to see, make sure it's not grainy. Totally peanut butter. As if it came out of the jar, really. So really good, not grainy. Perfect. All right. So we know how to rehydrate the peanut butter. We're looking at about 6, was it 6.5 or 7? I need to go back and look at that. Teaspoons of water to 1 cup of the peanut butter powder to get to about a 1/4 cup of peanut butter. So it looks to me like it's going to rehydrate back to kind of what I started with originally. So let's move forward with the sauce. Now I'm going to make like I said, a peanut stir fry. So I'm going to mix all of my sauce and I'm going to mix that right in with the peanut butter. So I'm going to start with, I think, a teaspoon of garlic powder. And I can't get my teaspoon in there, so I'm going to use 2 half teaspoons. And that's not even the right one. That's a half a tablespoon. See what happens when you don't have your glasses on? All right. So I'm going to add a teaspoon of garlic powder. And again, I have a half teaspoon measurer here, so I'm using 2 of those. And then I am going to add a half a teaspoon, I think, of ginger. When you're making a stir fry, it's sort of an oriental type meal. One thing to be aware of when you're cooking, substitute. Unless you're baking muffins, cakes, breads, you really don't have to be exact with things. Now, my husband likes heat. I don't like a lot of heat. So I'm going to put in probably, maybe not quite a 1/4 teaspoon of red pepper flakes. If you don't have red pepper flakes and you want some heat, you could use red pepper powder or cayenne pepper powder. That would give you some heat. You could even put a little bit of Tabasco in there, I suppose, if you wanted to. All right, so that's the dry ingredients. And I did the dry ingredients first just because it's less messy to do that. Then I'm going to add my soy sauce. And I'm going to use a tablespoon of that. Soy sauce is sort of a basic in any kind of a oriental meal. So soy sauce. And then I'm going to use, you always want to have a sweetener of some sort. Honey, you could use brown sugar if you want. I'm using agave today. I use that usually instead of honey simply because it doesn't crystallize. And for some reason, probably because I don't use it often enough, honey crystallizes on me. And I just like working with the agave. I think I'm just going to give that just a tiny bit more. Teaspoon of that. Rice wine vinegar. I'm going to use another teaspoon of that. Rice wine vinegar gives it a little bit of acid, but it's a little bit of a sweet too. And then I'm going to use some sesame oil. Now, sesame oil is one of those things that you definitely are going to use less is more. It goes a long way. A little goes a long way. So what you think you might need, you probably need a lot less. But it's the thing that really also helps give that oriental feel to it. So I'm going to use a half a teaspoon of sesame oil. I'm not really sure what you could substitute for that because I think it's sort of a unique ingredient onto itself. So I'm just going to give all of these kind of a stir. And then I'm just going to let this sit aside. So that's really just going to make kind of a thick sauce. And that's going to be the sauce for our stir fry. And it really is just sort of a, kind of a, I don't know, a little looser than toothpaste maybe. You can kind of see what it looks like with the peanut butter. And I'm going to set that aside. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add my vegetables. So I'm going today use some red peppers. We had broccoli last night. And I'm going to use the rest of the broccoli. Now, I usually take the stems and make those in littler pieces because they take longer to cook than the florets. You know, these are the florets. So I chopped them up into little pieces. It would have been better if I would have probably sliced thin slices, but it is what it is. I'm going to add some peas because I have those in the freezer. If you don't like this, if you don't like broccoli, use cabbage, use green beans, use pea pods. Use something green though to make it look good. If you don't like peppers, sliced carrots might be an option. Peas, love them or leave them, you know. What I'm saying is use what you have. Your flavor profile is going to be a little bit different, but in the end, you can still get a stir fry. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to saute all of these vegetables, and then I'm going to be back to show you how this all comes together. All right, I sauteed my vegetables until they were tender. You don't want them mushy by any means, but you don't want them crispy, but you still want them to have some body or a little bit of bite to them. All right, so to that, I had a couple really, maybe tablespoons of oil that I sauteed them in, and then I ended up adding a little water for steam just to finish these. I'm actually cooking these on saute in an Instant Pot just because it's easier to clean up, frankly, than the frying pan. So to this, I'm going to add my chicken. Remember, I had cooked that ahead of time. I'm going to stir that in, and then I'm going to stir in the peanut sauce. Now this is fairly thick and I might need to thin this out a little bit, but I'm gonna start with this and see what it is, see how it goes. I tasted this while I was cooking the vegetables and I'm really happy with the balance of flavors. Though my husband's probably gonna want a little bit more heat on it, but you can always add that, right? All right, so I've got the peanut butter in there and I'm just gonna give that a quick stir and see where we're at. You don't really want a thick sauce when this is all done. You want a little bit of juice, but you don't want a gravy or a lot of it. Now this coated really nice. As I was stirring this, I thought a sliced onion would have been good in here for a vegetable too. So this turned out actually pretty well. And I don't know if I'm gonna cook this down a little bit more or not. I think I'm going to taste it and see where we're at. Get a bite here, get something that I can put in my mouth. Okay, that's good. I am going to add a little bit of water to it though, not because it needs, you know, a thinning out as such, but I'm actually going to serve this on a bed of rice tonight. So I'm going to put this back on the Instant Pot to heat up for just a minute. In the meantime, if you have an idea that you like or this inspired you, I would really appreciate if you'd subscribe to the channel in the lower right corner. Thumbs up would tell me you want more recipes. So hang tight and we're gonna wrap this up. All right, so short of the rice, which I haven't made and put on here yet, we have a really pretty healthy and tasty dinner. You definitely can taste the peanut butter without it being overwhelming. Got a little bite of that heat from one of those pepper flakes. The broccoli, the peppers, everything's done. Remember when you're cooking and you're using your ingredients and you're looking at recipes, substitute what you want to substitute. Freeze-dried peanut butter, this is going to be something that I think I'm going to use regularly. It's convenient, it's great for camping and hiking. This would freeze dry really well. I'll probably make a bigger batch of this down the road and freeze dry it for when we're on the road. In the meantime, I thank you for watching and happy food preservation.